What is up, A to Z Sports? We are back. We are live. Sam Phelan here. This is the A to Z Sports Titan Draft live show presented by Prince's Hot Chicken and Holiday World and Splashin' Safari. We were here last night live with you guys, and we are back again. Jack Gentry, Lucas Panzica, for what should be, hopefully, another good night of draft content. The Tennessee Titans picking 38th overall, so the sixth pick tonight in the second round. The second round is about to start. We will react to it. We will give you predictions, figure out how we are feeling as this Titans draft class begins to take shape. Before we get into all of it, want to tell you guys about our sponsors. They make it happen for us and help out all of you. They're Prince's Hot Chicken, Nashville's original hot chicken, bursting with heat and flavor. And there's nothing better than the original. 3 locations around Nashville: South Nashville, 5th and Broadway, Tanger outlets, plus one in the airport, and Holiday World and Splashin' Safari. Family fun just a couple hours away from us in Nashville with top-ranking roller coasters, brand new rides, and the nation's first launched water coaster as well. Get the summer started on the right track with the best savings at holidayworld.com, where there's always free parking, free soft drinks, and free sunscreen. Jack, Lucas, welcome back in. It's round 2. How are we feeling?
You know, last night was a roller coaster. I think it was a roller coaster of emotions in the chat with JC Latham. I hope Titans fans have come around to the pick at this point. But look, whether you like that or not, the Titans have a massive pick here at 38. And a massive decision to make, whether or not they want to move back, maybe try and get another pick in day 2. We'll see what ends up happening. But guys, I mean, there's a boatload of talent still available here in round 2. And you got to figure one of these guys that we all have our eyes on, we'll get to here in a minute, is going to slip to 38. So I'm fired up. I'm ready for the Titans to draft another day 1 starter, and I can't wait to see who it is.
Lucas, how did sorry,
go ahead. No, you got it.
Well, Lucas, I'm curious, how do you feel like the end of the first round played out for the Titans as far as like the position groups and the talent that's still on the board? We can take a look quickly at some of the best players available and give or take a couple of names here or there. There were some surprise picks at the back end of that first round, specifically at wide receiver with a guy like Ricky Pearsall and Xavier Legette going right at the end. So good first round for the Titans and what they are maybe trying to do here at 38.
Yeah, the run on receivers is starting to pick up steam, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if a couple more fly right off the board, especially with this first pick of the second round. Buffalo, by the way, I think their fan base has to be incensed at the idea of trading out and going ahead and giving Patrick Mahomes the fastest 40 time in combine history with Xavier Worthy going to Kansas City with the 28th pick. But some good receivers still left on the board. I agree with you. Surprising that both Pearsall and Legette were first-round picks. But, man, the defensive players at the top of the second round, there's some good ones to choose from. We knew that this draft was going to shatter an NFL record in offensive linemen taken with the first round. It did so by, 4 picks? The record previously, I think, was 19. 23 offensive players taken in the first round. So I think we'll see the run on wide receivers kind of conclude near the beginning of this second round, and then the run on high-level defensive players, the Junior Colsons of the world, are going to start flying off the board here in the second round, and probably right around where the Titans are picking guys at 38.
Well, let's kick this off by asking both of you and the chat real quick to just put a position group that you have in mind here, because Rand Carthon did say, and I think we might actually have the video here where we could play it. We do. This was Rand Carthon yesterday talking about the Titans pick at 7 after JC Latham looking ahead to tonight. He said they have a very calculated plan and guys already in mind that they felt like would be there for them.
We're sitting, once we get up, I'm looking over the shoulder now, just seeing who Minnesota picked. Kind of playing it all in my head of who's going to be available. But, we came in with a targeted plan. We should have some guys available to us that we like, that we figured should be there. But, of course, as this thing shakes, there's going to be a couple surprises as we get to the back end of guys being taken that you may or may not have accounted for. So we'll play the board, but we have some targeted guys that we'd like to see there at 38.
Targeted guys that they'd like to see there and a very intentional targeted plan. So the chat's kind of flowing in here. Lucas, I'll throw it to you. What's the position group that you have your eye on? You mentioned defense, but where specifically on the defense do you want to see the Titans go?
Well, you could go a couple different ways, Sam. I will stick with either off-ball linebacker, a.k.a. Junior Colson, or Edgerrin Cooper, a guy that a lot of people rate really highly out of Texas A&M, or at edge rusher. Wondered if a guy like Darius Robinson would fall out of the first round. The edge rusher out of Missouri didn't happen. He went yesterday. So if Titans are going defense here, I think it would probably be either interior defensive line or off-ball linebacker. I don't know about wide receiver, guys, unless Ladd McConkey falls to that 38 spot, which I highly doubt he will. He feels like one of the first receivers to fly off this board, just a great slot receiver out of Georgia. But I think I would go either off-ball linebacker or interior defensive line. For me personally, it's Junior Colson because, guys, I think you can find some bodies to put in there on the defensive line to supplement Jeffrey Simmons and Sebastian Joseph Day. Titans have done it pretty well over the years. It's something they've been good at. I know it's a new administration, new coaching staff, all of those things, but I just have a hard time figuring out an off-ball linebacker, the Mike, the green dot to put in there next to Kenneth Murray. That's going to be a critical piece in the middle of this defense. So that is where I personally would go. The likes of Junior Colson, who's local, who's got a great story, and who people just rave about as an elite defensive player coming out of Michigan.
Got an interesting note on what you just said. Before Jack goes, we have our first pick of the second round. So, why not? I'll do it again. I'll announce it. I know everybody's probably, Sam, please announce the pick. Sam, you're so good at announcing picks. So fine, you guys get what you want. Here we go. The Bills pick is in. With the 33rd overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. So, Lucas, sounds like you were right, and this was something I kind of thought might happen here. We might see a run on receivers and cornerbacks at the beginning of this second round here. Looked like some of that talent that Keon Coleman, A.D. Mitchell, Ladd McConkey's that I thought would go in round one, fell out of round one, and then you have your Cooper DeJeans, Kool-Aid McKinstry's as well. And if those guys go, D-line is very interesting. And the guy that you actually didn't mention, but I think is worth mentioning here is Johnny Newton out of Illinois, who I think slam dunk first round pick, maybe some concerns about the foot injury, but I'm shocked he's still on the board. And if the skill guys go at the top of the second round, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, they want to improve the trenches. Johnny Newton is a name to watch. But Jack, what position has your eye?
Yeah, I wrote a story today. It's out now on A2Zsports.com. I ranked the 5 biggest needs for the Titans in day 2 by position. And at the top of my list, like Lucas, I had inside linebacker. The Titans need a green dot guy. Kenneth Murray, they're not going to want wearing that dot. Lucas talked about it last night. They just want him to go out and be a dog. Okay. But you got to find a guy in the middle you're comfortable, relaying the signals on the defensive side of the ball. And Junior Colson is a guy who can do that, and he's not the only inside linebacker in this class that gets me excited, right? Like Edgerrin Cooper, the guy out of A&M, is another player who can do some of those things. And Peyton out of NC State also is capable. You can probably even trade back and still land a quality inside linebacker in the second round if that's what you choose to do, while also recouping maybe a third round pick. But, there's a couple interesting angles. Like there's been double dip.
I'm having mic troubles.
We lost you there for a minute. I was very confused if it was my end or your end. I think it was your end. Jack, if you want to get that figured out, I don't know. But the question that I would have about inside linebacker is the value at inside linebacker there at the top end of the second round versus round 4. I mean, here's the Titans picks on the evening, and not having a third round pick probably does hurt them. The gap between 38 and 106 is brutal. I just struggle with the idea of you're probably taking the first inside linebacker of the draft class off the board. And where is that value? Can you get a guy that fits your defensive scheme at 106 or 146? And you might not be able to find the same quality of defensive line or wide receiver talent that late.
Yeah, I guess the question for me, Sam, is at what point does best available supersede need for the Titans? It didn't. In the top 10, right? Sure. The Titans obviously highly rated J.C. Latham, but are we going to say J.C. Latham was the best available player across the board with that 7th pick? Brock Bowers was still out there. Obviously, people can debate these things, but they're going to have their pick of defensive players. You mentioned the Newton kid. There's Braden Fisk, the defensive tackle out of Florida State. Edge rusher, kind of the top guys already came off the board. It's not necessarily an elite edge rusher class to begin with. So if you're going defense here, again, I think it's either interior D-line or inside linebacker, and it's just such an important position that you're not going to get a chance to address later on. But, with that said, Titans picked David Long with the later round pick, and he was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year coming out, maybe a little undersized coming out of West Virginia. And then a couple years later, he was the Titans' Mike linebacker. He was flying around. He was a good player in the middle of that defense. But your Mike linebacker, if you draft one, is likely going to have to start day one, which is why I would not be upset if it's a Junior Colson type of pick. But that said, if there is a receiver prospect that Brian Callahan loves there at 38, he already passed up best available pass catchers once at 7. If Ladd McConkey is around there at 38, as we watch Keon Coleman go off the board, what do we have here? The Patriots are after the Bills. Patriots certainly have a need at wide receiver, but they've got needs all over the place, guys. They could go D-line here. They could go elsewhere. Arizona could probably make, go a million different directions. And then Washington at 36 could certainly go wide receiver to put somebody opposite Terry McLaurin. So we'll see if that run on receivers continues. But if there is an elite receiver there at 38, it'll be interesting to see if Brian Callahan has to kind of, if he passes it up again, the way they did it with that 7th pick.
I think I know which wide receiver it would be. I'm going to tell the chat which wide receiver I think it would be. Before we do that, I'm going to look at what the chat's saying on positions, because Tin wants a defensive lineman. Wyatt says safety or wide receiver. Jonathan says D-line. Christopher says linebacker or defensive end. Wide receiver after moving down. Defensive line is out there. Karen is a strict best available, which, hey, Titans have more than one need. Best available, not a horrible strategy there. There's one wide receiver that I think this would be for Brian Callahan, and 2 things go into it for me. Number one, Callahan has said in the past, Titans looking to upgrade in the slot. They need a wide receiver who can excel in the slot for them. And number 2, we talked about this briefly yesterday. I think this is super relevant today. Rand Carthon's love of drafting prospects that have visited with the Titans on a top 30 visit. He did it a ton with his draft class last year, and guys like Will Levis, Tajay Spears, Peter Skoronski, even Jalen Duncan was in Nashville on a visit. J.C. Latham, we just heard at the press conference, hey, he came to Nashville and spent 2 hours talking with Bill Callahan. They want to draft a prospect that they know. And if we look at the top available guys here, well, there's one guy not on this list that plays wide receiver that could go in the 2nd round, that could play the slot, and did do a top 30 visit with the Titans. His name is none other than Roman Wilson out of the University of Michigan. That's a sneaky name to watch here if it is wide receiver. Other guys, your guy, Junior Colson, Lucas, who were up here, we know Tavondre Sweat came on a top 30. Kool-Aid McKinstry came on a top 30. So, Jack, is one of these top 30 visit prospects going to be where the Titans go?
And wait, real quick, Jack, the Chargers have traded with the Patriots. So the Chargers are picking here at 34. Expect a receiver to go here.
And I have the pick if we want to go ahead and run with that real quick. Here we are. The Chargers move up 3 spots, and with the 34th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the LA Chargers select Ladd McConkey, wide receiver, Georgia. So, big addition, and what a job by Jim Harbaugh getting Joe Alt and Ladd McConkey in this draft. And Jack,
no, we lost you again, Jack.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Obviously, there was a need there, right? I mean, Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnson, that's essentially your wide receiver room right now with the LA Chargers.
I mean, if you're a Chargers fan, drafting Joe Alt was kind of like, ugh. Because he's Joe Alt and he's great, but Jim Harbaugh, like the first thing he says at the podium is, hey, I know the questions are going to be about weapons. We view offensive linemen as a weapon. But unlike your Mike Vrabels of the world, who are sitting there refusing to take a wide receiver, I mean, Ladd McConkey is a really, really good player. I think he's got a very high floor at the next level. And pairing him with Justin Herbert, I think does a lot for that offense. So Very well done by the Chargers. The Patriots bounce back to 37. So we're now 3 picks away from the Titans at 38. And just looking at this list, Coleman, McConkey, gone. Adonai Mitchell is still out there. And then all of those defensive players still on the board.
All right. So does A.D. Mitchell go to somewhere like Washington? Do the Patriots take a player like A.D. Mitchell or a Roman Wilson? Those feel like probably the 2 best receiver names left on the board, right? Wilson and Mitchell.
Yeah. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots, if the Commanders opt to go cornerback. They lost Kendall Fuller and Kool-Aid McKinstry sitting there. Surprisingly, I think that's a surprise to a lot of people. And Cooper DeJean, also another name that we haven't really spent a lot of time on yet.
He's interesting.
Will he play safety in the NFL? That's a big question. And, if he's available when the Titans come on the clock at 38, I mean, I fantasize about putting him next to Amani Hooker in that secondary. That gets me going right there. But, I was going to say, there's a couple of the guys that Sam just mentioned that have been on the draft visits. You obviously have to keep your eyes on those dudes, but there's a couple that the Titans didn't visit with that I'd be absolutely okay with them taking. And before my mic cut off, we'll see if his mic survives tonight if I don't throw it against the wall. But I mentioned about double dipping at right tackle. They've done that before, and in 2005 they did it with Michael Roos and David Stewart. Both were Pro Bowlers, so it's worked out before. We'll see if they take that route in the second round. I feel like you have enough to maybe work with on the right side if Bill Callahan can get NPF right to where you can push that need back a little further. I want to see defense here. And like Lucas was kind of alluding to, this edge rusher class at the moment is a little underwhelming in my opinion. I think if you can luck out and have Johnny Newton slip to you, that man is a disruptor on the inside. He can do a lot of the things that, Danico Autry did last year. And really be a running mate with Jeffrey Simmons. And those two can cause hell for opposing offensive coordinators. So that's a name I'm looking at. Wide receiver-wise, though, I'd be surprised if any of the big names fell to the Titans. I think Roman Wilson is probably a guy that they have their eye on. If if somebody wants to come up and trade with him, maybe move back, get him later in the second round. Or, if he's there early in the third round, make a move up there and pair him with maybe a Junior Colson. I think the Titans win the day today by moving back into the middle of the second round and adding a third-round pick if possible.
We have another trade. The Atlanta Falcons have just traded up. Perhaps they are trying to get Spencer Rattler here at 35 overall. But Arizona's bouncing back here. Monty Ossenfort deals the pick. What is Atlanta coming up for? Defense, possibly. There was a lot of Dallas Turner rumors in the first round that did not end up coming to fruition. Do they go and get a defensive player? That's another team, right? It's like if you end up with Johnny Newton, it makes the Michael Penix pick look slightly less bad. Still bad, but maybe slightly less bad.
There's
no makeup you can put on Michael Penix at 8 or Penix at 8. You can't make that pick look good. There's no way you can do it.
Yeah, man. I mean, how much are you sacrificing the ability to win now for a potential safety net down the road? And then we're talking about 2-3 years from now, and he's 2 or 3 years into his rookie deal, and the guy's already 22, 23 years old before you know anything about him, and then have to figure it out from there. I couldn't believe the Falcons didn't go edge rusher in the top 10 yesterday. We'll see. Marshawn Nealon's on the board, the Western Michigan edge rusher.
Let me throw some out there too. Michael Penix is about to turn 24. He turns 24 2 weeks from now on May 8th. So, this is a guy, if you sit him for 2 years, he's a rookie NFL quarterback at 26 years old. It really, really, really makes no sense. And Terry Fontenot's explanation for it made negative sense as well. He just said, we're looking at the future right here. Well, you have Kirk Cousins for $100 million. I don't know where that call came from, but the call's probably coming from inside the house with Arthur Blank. And I don't know why, because if I'm an NFL owner, I would prefer not to use $100 million guaranteed on a guy who then we draft a replacement for immediately after paying him. That feels like bad business. So the Falcons have all sorts of problems. Whatever NFL fan you are, however upset you might be about the Titans pick, and ladies and gentlemen, we have the Falcons pick, and buckle up once again. I hope I get this right, but with the 35th pick after trading up, the Atlanta Falcons are selecting Ruke Orhorhoro, defensive tackle out of Clemson. an athletic freak, tested off the charts at the NFL Combine, had a lot of people kind of looking at him. 35 for Ruke Orhoro, if it's a mouthful, feels like
sounds like a seal. Oro.
It's rough to be an Atlanta Falcons fan. Now we've
lost Luke. I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, I had myself muted for whatever reason. This just goes to show you have no idea how these teams' boards are stacked up. You have no idea. They don't give a damn what the draft experts and analysts are saying. Dane Brugler has Orhoro as his number 4 defensive tackle, his number 51 overall prospect, and he just went in the early 30s to Atlanta. You have no idea how teams have these guys stacked up with Braden Fisk, Newton still on the board. Falcons fans are probably going through it right now. Not the way that they likely thought this was going to go. But again, just those best receiver names are getting pushed down, maybe making Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon think right now.
Yeah, or at the very least, it makes, that proposition of a trade even more attractive for teams looking to move up and grab a receiver if there's multiple guys there. So it gives the Titans some options if these guys slip. And you're right, man. The Falcons are the clear losers of this draft. To trade all the way back up to the top of the second round and reach for a defensive tackle. What's going on in Atlanta?
Man, all the targets that I kind of had my eyes on for the Titans at 38 kind of remain on the board for the most part. Got an interesting another angle of this. I want to talk trade down for a minute. Before I do that, a reminder about who is sponsoring tonight's show, and got to give a ton of love, and I'm going to click on the right sponsor this time tonight. Got to talk about Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Get the summer started with the best savings online at holidayworld.com. They've got great value, always free soft drinks, parking, and sunscreen when you go to Holiday World. Great variety with over 40 rides and slides with something for everyone in the family, award-winning roller coasters and a water park, and a Holiday in the Skies drone show now with 500 drones this summer. They've also got a nice little family-friendly coaster. If you've got kids, want to take them to a theme park, they've got a Thanksgiving-themed coaster called Good Gravy, themed after a Thanksgiving dinner with a gravy boat and cranberry-colored tracks reaching up to 37 miles an hour with jelly and narrowly avoiding kitchen items. It's Thanksgiving chaos over at Holiday World. So head over there, bring your family there, and go to holidayworld.com and get the summer started off right. Big thanks to Holiday World for making it happen tonight. But boys, we really haven't talked about the elephant in the room, which is these picks and that gap that you see between 38 and 106. Lucas, you say that the wide receiver talent begins to get pushed down, and maybe it's making Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan think, but maybe it's making somebody else think about coming up to get one of those wide receivers. Are you in the trade back camp at 38 right now?
I think I'm still in the trade back camp if you can get a third round pick out of it and just continue to add defensive depth, to add that wide receiver earlier than maybe you would have to if you had to wait to the 4th or 5th round. So yes, 100%. If there's a good offer, if there's a team that absolutely adores Roman Wilson and wants to trade up for him, then I'm all about it if it gets the Titans at minimum a third round pick in 2024.
Totally.
How about
agree.
you, Jack?
I totally agree with Lucas. I think if you can acquire a third round pick while moving back slightly in the second round, you do it 100 times out of 100. And, there is that question that we were talking about kind of yesterday and really leading up to the draft is how far is too far back to trade? And I think that comes into play here. I don't want the Titans to move all the way to the back third of the second round, right? I want them to find a partner somewhere in the middle of that to where they can grab a Junior Colson, where they can grab an Edgerrin Cooper if that's who they want at inside linebacker, and then follow it up in the third round with a Malachi Corley or, one of these third round guys out of Washington, McMillan or Polk. So
I love Jalen McMillan. Jalen McMillan.
So if you could cross 2 items off your grocery list, I think you're really winning this draft if you're Rand Carthon.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think the way that this has gone right now, I didn't see Ruke going this early here, but a lot of the defensive talent still on the board. You might have more wiggle room if you're the Titans looking for a defensive player in round 2 to bounce back 5-7 spots. Try and grab a third round pick, see if you can still, check multiple needs off. And really, when you look at inside linebacker specifically, and this might be why I don't necessarily love the idea of Junior Colson at 38 as much as I could. It's because I think there's a lot of inside linebackers that for me are somewhat interchangeable. Like I think between Junior Colson and a guy like Peyton Wilson, and then you look at other guys like Edgerrin Cooper that are still on the board, you could sell me on a number of inside backers. So maybe that gap, if it's not huge on your draft board, one's going to go, but you can get one at 45. You can get one at 48. You have an opportunity to move back and get back into the third round to go make a run. And we have the Commanders pick. It affects the Titans pretty significantly. So here we go. With the 36th selection in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Washington Commanders select Johnny Newton, defensive tackle, Illinois, ILL. Represent my Fighting Illini is Johnny Newton. So big fan of the player. Foot injury cost him a first-round status. Good get by the Washington Commanders. Absolutely, they have to be elated with their draft, grabbing Jaden Daniels and Johnny Newton here. But that is one of those interior defensive linemen off the board that I think, Lucas, you had your eye on.
Yeah, no doubt. A lot of people had their eyes on. So when you look at it now, who are we looking at as that best defensive lineman left on the board? There's Chris Jenkins still out there from Michigan. Braden Fisk still out there from Florida
State.
The case
for T'Vondre Sweat?
T'Vondre Sweat, is that a guy that – yeah, I mean, who is that a guy that we feel like could drop into that fourth or fifth round? You know, if there's this has been a relatively quiet draft in terms of quote unquote character concerns, right? Not a lot of big scandals involving draft prospects. Really, Sweat was the only one in the lead up to the draft process. He had the DWI. I saw Dane Brugler of The Athletic in his comprehensive draft guide, The Beast, that a lot of scouts have referred to him kind of as an infectious personality, good to have in the locker room, but on the negative side of that, kind of that quote unquote party animal class clown type of guy. Maybe that's something that's just being put out there. He's a great player though. And Brian Callahan did say they had Sweat in for a top 30 visit. And Brian Callahan talked about wanting to bring guys like that in, guys that actually run into those issues to get a better feel for it, instead of just dismissing something because of a headline, walking through it with those guys and getting a better idea of who they are after going through something like that. You just don't know how the Titans came out of that meeting with him. So it's definitely an intriguing idea, T'Vondre Sweat, but I'm going to keep speaking Junior Colson into existence, guys. I know you mentioned the others on the board, the Peyton Wilsons, the Edgerrin Coopers. Look, Wilson, I think there's some injury concerns there. Cooper, some project him as an outside linebacker. We'll see what he does when he gets to this next level. I think Junior Colson is going to be a fantastic inside linebacker in the NFL. He's a smart guy. He's a commanding guy, athletic, available. His backstory is incredible. The local thing doesn't matter for teams
Ravenwood
that are drafting
High School,
someone.
baby.
Yeah, Ravenwood High School. I mean, maybe I'm biased because I got to call some of his high school games at Ravenwood. I just love Junior Colson, and I think that is such a massive need and not one to skimp on when you consider the fact that, like the tackle spot, likely going to have to start day one as a rookie, so you want to get the best of the best.
All right, the Patriots pick is in at 37. I'll do a rebuttal on Sweat and then let Jack get his word in before the Titans are on the clock. With the 37th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New England Patriots select Jalen Polk, wide receiver, Washington. So it's another receiver, maybe not one that was at the top of board. Still no Adonai Mitchell, still no Roman Wilson. Jalen Polk goes here to New England, and the Titans now are on the clock. The T'Vondre Sweat thing. Look, I will not let it die. If Bork wants me to let it die, I will not, because, Lucas, you said he's an infectious personality. I spent a lot of time with T'Vondre at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, got to know him very well, and he is infectious is a great word for it. A quiet, confident swagger to him that just pulls you in. This competitive edge and fire, the way that he speaks, not in like an arrogant way, not even in a diva way, in a way that, okay, this guy knows that he's about to mess some dudes up on an offensive line. And it transfers in his play. He has an incredible motor, willing to run down plays on the other side of the field at over 360 pounds. I hear the character thing, but as you mentioned, the Titans have a plan in place. They emphasize character. They brought him in and got to know him. If he's the Titans pick, I don't have any worries that they feel confident in his character. I don't think Titans fans should either. That would be a really interesting selection, somebody they did visit with, one of those names here. Jack, now that we know who's on the board for the Titans, where are you at with everything?
Man, you know, I'm really curious as to what they do here, because there's two. I mean, a lot of people had Kool-Aid McKinstry and Cooper DeJean going in the first round, and you shored up your needs in the secondary, at least in the cornerback room, this offseason. But this feels like a best player available situation. I feel like one of those guys is on your roster. Now, Junior Colson is probably the best player available that also fills a massive need. So I wouldn't be upset if the Titans went Colson here. But I want to ask both of you guys, is this a spot where, you know, you feel comfortable moving back and still being able to land Colson, maybe if it's, you know, 7-8 picks down the road?
I mean, we not a ton of defensive talent off the board, and like so many of those top tier linebackers, you don't know how everybody has them ranked. You're saying if you trade back, like I do think you could potentially get a Junior Colson or a Cedric Gray or a Peyton Wilson or one of those top inside linebackers at 10 picks from now. Yeah.
All right, real quick. What's everybody's home run pick here? If the Titans stick and pick, what's the best case scenario in your opinion? Chat, get in on this as well. I want to hear answers from you.
Yeah, it's a great question. Who's the home run pick? I'll go off first and then let everybody else go. I'm going to ride with my guy. I'm going to ride or die. T'Vondre Sweat is a great pick here at 38. I don't care. You can berate me all you want. I love it. I'm good with Junior Colson. I'm really excited for either of those two top defensive backs, either Kool-Aid McKinstry or Cooper DeJean. If those guys are the picks, similar to how the Sweat isn't a character concern, you have to figure they see a fit in this defense where that guy can play right away. So, but I'm a ride with my T'Vondre Sweat.
I'm sticking to my guns on Colson for all the reasons I laid out, and you put it really well, Jack. Arguably the best player available. Maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry have something to say about that. You can nitpick there. And Fitz nails a huge need for the Titans. There's going to be wide receivers down the road in this draft, and you don't need a wide receiver 1. You don't need a wide receiver 2. Yes, you need wide receiver depth, but you don't just need depth at inside linebacker. You need a dude to step in there and take command of this defense from day one. I think that dude could be Junior Colson. He's been my draft crush on the defensive side of the ball. So my home run pick here at 38 is absolutely the linebacker out of Michigan.
Okay, going through some of the chat answers real quick. Orlando says DeJean, Mitchell from the Bear, Cooper from Awaken, Fisk, Cooper, AD Mitchell or trade. David wants to trade back. Kool-Aid from Slimy, Mitchell, Cooper, trade back from Kenneth. We've got Mitchell. Noah's on your side, Sam. He wants Sweat. AD from John, Cooper from Koss, Kool-Aid here. We got Cooper, Kool-Aid, Cooper. So the DBs are real popular in the chat.
Popular, man. I saw it in the chat earlier. I was tweeting out about, hey, Johnny Newton, maybe one of the D tackles, and everybody's like, nope, give me Cooper DeJean. So I don't know. He's still on the board.
I mean, look, you can never have too many corners, and Cooper DeJean could absolutely. Okay.
With the 38th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select T'Vondre Sweat.
Oh,
wow. Tackle out of Texas.
Oh, my God.
There's my draft crush. There's my guy. Let's go, baby. What a dog. Offensive line. Hey, pray for the league. Offensive lines around the NFL. Beware. You can do your cute little, hey, we're going to draft Joe Alt. All right, that's great. Hey, you can do your little Stephon Diggs trade, Houston Texans. CJ Stroud's in trouble because he's got T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons coming after his head. You are in trouble. Pray for yourself. Get extra protection. You might want to wear those little poofy things that they're letting the guys wear on top of their helmets right now, because the Tennessee Titans got some dogs up front. They are building in the trenches. I'm fired up. You guys sound off and react to it. My guy is a Titan. I called my shot. Let's go.
Look, I love the way they're building this draft, right? They're building it through the trenches, and that's what Vrabel's teams were so good at. You know, they were dominating the trenches. What's going to be great about Callahan's teams is they're also going to be good in the trenches. It appears they're investing in the trenches, like early on in this Ranahan tenure. But not only are they going to be good in the trenches, they're going to have a fast-paced, high-flying, new era offense that they can also lay back on. So you're going to keep some of the things that were so good with Vrabel's teams while also adding a new element in the passing game that we haven't seen maybe ever in Tennessee. So it's kind of a, the best of both worlds here. T'Vondre Sweat next to Jeffrey Simmons. Good Lord. The interior offensive line of the Titans' opponents, like you said, Sam, are about to be in hell. I mean, T'Vondre Sweat next to Jeffrey Simmons. Oh, my goodness. That's a force to be reckoned with.
Without question, it fills a massive position of need for the Titans to slide in there next to Jeffrey Simmons, next to Sebastian Joseph Day. And T'Vondre Sweat, I will say, was one of, if not my favorite profile to read from Dane Brugler's breakdown throughout this process with his strengths and weaknesses, the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. We've talked about some of those issues, right, with the weaknesses, the quote-unquote party animal, class clown type of stuff, which also can flip into positive things as far as who he is in the locker room and the way players gravitate towards him, like you were talking about, Sam. But I have to read this quote from a scout in Dane Brugler's breakdown under the strengths category, where he says, the quote from the scout is, "Did you see the new Mario movie? When Donkey Kong pounds the snot out of Mario, it gave me flashbacks of Sweat's film." So when you read that, that can definitely get you excited. Position of need, absolutely. And the Titans saw T'Vondre Sweat's legal issue in this process as more of a reason to bring him in. Because, look, this guy's a great football player. Teammates love this guy. Yes, this guy's had to kind of improve his emotional maturity over the years, but let's not dismiss him because of this issue. Let's bring him in and break it down and find out if it's a problem on the road. Obviously, the conclusion the Titans came to is no, it's not. T'Vondre Sweat is someone we want on this defensive line and in this locker room.
Lucas, he takes up 2 gaps standing there. He fills 2 run gaps standing there. Legitimately 80 pounds on NFL centers, 60 to 80 pounds on NFL centers. Bo Limmer is one of the top centers in this draft out of Arkansas. And I watched him front and center. I was standing arm in arm with Mike Tomlin, basically, touching elbows with Mike Tomlin, Matt Eberflus, and Chris Ballard, watching T'Vondre Sweat grab Bo Limmer, shove him back 5 yards in 2 hops, and fold him like a pancake backwards. You cannot block him one-on-one. He is unblockable one-on-one. I talked to former Titans defensive line coach Terrell Williams on the field. He was the defensive line coach for T'Vondre Sweat's Reese's Senior Bowl team. During a practice, I'm sitting there talking to Terrell Williams, and I know he's crushing on this guy. And I look over at Coach T and I go, "Hey, how about Sweat, huh?" And he goes, "That boy can be as good as he wants to be in this league." Like, the dude has a work ethic. He's got a motor, and he is legitimately unblockable. I don't know what offensive lines are going to do with Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons coming back at him. And I do think this is a 3-down player as well. I don't think this is just a run stopper, just a T.R. Tart type of role. I'm fired up about this pick. And I can't wait for Titans fans to get to see this guy's attitude and energy. The swagger is off the charts.
It's a good pick. And, the Titans added Sebastian Joseph Day in free agency, and this moves Sebastian Joseph Day to more of a rotational guy, which is great because, for the majority of his 5 seasons in the NFL, he's been a starter. So you add T'Vondre Sweat here to tear up space, on the defensive line. And this is a guy that's nicknamed Loaf, short for Meatloaf. That's how big he is, right? You mentioned he can take up 2 gaps. He's a first-round talent. I think he's got a first-round skill set. Greg Cosell actually went on the Ross Tucker podcast and said that he's got better tape than Jordan Davis, who was a top 10 pick to the Philadelphia Eagles not too long ago. So T'Vondre Sweat's ceiling appears to be sky high. If he can stay in shape and, manage his weight, which I know has been a concern from some people heading into this draft, the Titans got an absolute stud in the second round. Again.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody's going to take issue with this pick, maybe it's that you could have gotten him later down the road. But like we've talked about, the Titans don't pick until the hundreds. So at some point, you just got to take the guy that you want on your football team. Clearly, the answer here is T'Vondre Sweat. Could T'Vondre Sweat be available in the 3rd round? Sure. Could he be available when the Titans are picking in the 4th round? That's when it starts to get a little bit iffy. So I'm okay with the pick and where he was taken, just in that the Titans do not have a 3rd rounder.
And you leave the inside linebacker unattended, right? But
yeah,
what happens if the rusher doesn't get to the 2nd level? Because T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons are there to eat him alive. You can fix that issue in the 4th round now because you've got 2 absolute mammoths in the middle of that defensive line that are going to swallow, whether it's quarterbacks or running backs alive as soon as they cross their paths. So the inside linebacker position now it's not as pressing of a need as it once was, but you still got to figure out and find out a starter, probably in the 4th round, unless you make a move and trade back into the third, which I think is unlikely.
Listen, real quick too, to that point, Denard Wilson has talked about this before when referring to Kenneth Murray and the style of defense the Titans want to play around Kenneth Murray to put him in a position to succeed, play downhill, play fast, just go and be able to react and use his athletic tools as, to his advantage. They want to play downhill, fast, really physical football. And you see a world where, look, even if they don't get an inside linebacker that's a starter in this draft, even if it is a Jack Gibbons or, whoever it ends up being the, I don't know why I'm blanking on my boy out of LSU's Ole Miss's name right now.
Otis Reese.
Otis Reese. If it's Otis Reese or Jack Gibbons alongside Kenneth Murray, maybe they feel okay about that because, like you said, they feel good that they're going to have these run holes plugged with Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat and Harold Landry and Arden Key coming at you and Sebastian Joseph Day working in there and Rashad Weaver working in there. They've got cornerbacks that can trigger against the run and get downhill, and L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie that can be physical. Like, they're building a defense around inside linebacker right now where it helps whoever that second guy is come in and succeed right away.
Yeah, and you're leaning into the strength that is up front with Jeffrey Simmons. So pairing somebody with Jeffrey Simmons so he's not getting doubled, tripled in this Denard Wilson defense, you can get on board with that. I know a lot of people wanted Cooper DeJean, the versatility to come in and play corner, maybe play safety. But look, you're pretty much taken care of in terms of starter level cornerbacks. And there are safeties out there in free agency to bring in. That is probably the one position coming into this draft that I said I'm very okay with the Titans not addressing safety in the draft. Justin Simmons is still out there. I'm sure he didn't think he'd still be out there at this point in the offseason, but he still is. And there's other names in free agency that are experienced that could come in and play with Amani Hooker and with Elijah Molden. So, yeah, I'm about this pick because of what it puts next to Jeffrey Simmons and the matchup problems that it will pose. And Jeffrey Simmons has got to love this pick.
Can you imagine? Honestly, and I'm jealous of you guys because y'all are going to be out there at training camp. And I think it should be pay-per-view television when Tavondre Sweat goes up against Lloyd Cushenberry in the trenches. I mean, talk about two mammoths right there. Both 6'4", both over 300 pounds. And it's the Titans are beefed up. The beef boys are back in town, okay? The Tennessee Titans are going to be for real in the trenches. And over the last few years, their calling card on defense has been stopping the run. They're not only going to be able to do that, but they've also got a secondary to match now. So you can do either or. If you're playing a team that likes to run the ball, you've got Sweat and Big Jeff up front. If you're playing Mahomes or one of the gunslingers in the AFC like C.J. Stroud, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie are going to lock you down on the outside. So the Titans defense, Denard Wilson just walked into, paradise here in Tennessee, didn't he?
Hey, how about 700 pounds combined between your first and second round draft picks?
And I wonder what their combined squat is because J.C. Latham says he squatted 1,000 pounds of his press conference today.
Yeah.
Jack, you have a great point. You got some absolute dogs, and they're going to look really good getting off the bus and building the trenches. Here's Brian Callahan saying their goal in the draft, doing just that.
I mean, bigger is generally in football gonna usually be better. Especially when you're talking about guys up front, you want size and strength. And, I think, Denard says it sometimes, but, you want to get off the bus and look good too. Usually that's part of it. That means you've got a well-built football team. And so size and strength are things that you're always looking for, particularly in the trenches. Those are important pieces to playing NFL football because sometimes at the end of the day, it's just simply are you able to move that person, and it simplifies it, but that's what it comes down to. And so I'm not surprised by it. I like that. I like the big, strong players are things that I'm a fan of. So when they walk in our building, I get excited, even though we don't get to recruit them and sign them to scholarships. We got to draft them, and you only get one pick in each round, or sometimes you don't have one. But those guys are parts of that's what we want. We want our team, when you look at us, to go, God, these guys are big and strong and physical at the places that they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, now listening to that back in hindsight, knowing the Titans just drafted Tavondre Sweat, you start to connect a few of the dots here a little bit.
Yeah, maybe we see teams really start to come in on these straggling defensive tackles because the Rams just traded up to 39 right after the Titans to take defensive tackle Braden Fisk, trading with the Panthers to get up there, and LA takes Braden Fisk out of Florida State.
All right, well, let's let the chat kind of get their piece in here. Once again, we are grading the Titans pick, but we're doing it on the scale of Prince's hot chicken levels. And I'm going to ask you guys, what is your excitement level for the Titans drafting T'Vondre Sweat at 38th overall? We've got mild, medium, hot, and extra hot. Mild, medium, hot, and extra hot. The Prince's hot chicken scale here. And I got to tell you about our friends at Prince's Hot Chicken, because they are Nashville's original hot chicken, and they're bringing you a sizzling experience like no other, with a chance to win tickets for the Frozen the Musical at TPAC. So if you're a parent out there and you like hot chicken or have kids that like Frozen, maybe both, perfect scenario for you. Imagine this, a delicious breakfast fit for royalty, all set to the enchanting tunes of Disney's Frozen, the hit Broadway musical. You have to go to Prince's Tanger Outlets location this Saturday, the 27th. That's tomorrow, for a magical morning you won't forget, featuring special menu items like the Blizzard Blend scrambled eggs, sizzling snowflake bacon, turkey sausage snowballs, snowy pancakes, and blueberry blizzard muffins, fit for any ice queen or snowman. Enjoy fun-filled activities and the chance to win ticket giveaways. Get ready. It's this Saturday, tomorrow, at the Tanger Outlets, and every prize comes with a Frozen gift pack and a $25 Prince's gift card. Nashville's original hot chicken, Prince's Hot Chicken. Chat's coming in here with their answers: mild, medium, hot, or extra hot. And I'm getting a lot of hots right off the bat. Jake, Pistol Ramsey, Trevor, Leslie, Tanya, Willie, Teddy. Carrie's extra hot. We've got a cold from Chris Fonte. Cold wings, hot chicken does not work. I've never had Prince's cold chicken, so that's not going to work for me, Chris Fonte. Hot from Sean, hot from Willie, hot from Josh. Extra hot, says Lane. Hot, says Pistol Ramsey. Brandon's just a medium. We got a hot from Phelan. What a nice first name that is he's got on him. We got hot from Poi Pole and a hot from Julius. Everybody's hot. Jack Gentry, where are you?
I'm hot. I'm hot and bothered, Sam. The only thing that's keeping me from being extra hot is that I feel like maybe they could have waited for him, but after Johnny Newton goes, there's really not another player that you would take in front of Sweat on the interior defensive line. So it was a spot where, the Titans, we mentioned that gap in between the second and the fourth round picks that they hold. They had to find a player that can make an impact in year one. T'Vondre Sweat is exactly that. The Titans got their guy. They got a player who's going to dominate in the trenches next to Big Jeff, and it's going to make all Titans fans forget about Danico Autry. So I'm hot.
Oh, I don't know about that, Jack. You're talking about a lot of versatility there with Danico Autry that you lost, that you tried to bring back as he goes to Houston. I think this team could still use another pass rusher. We'll see if they address it down the road. Is there a middle ground between medium and hot? Because I think that's where I would be. I have no problem with where they took him.
Spicy barbecue.
I have no problem with where they took him for what you just said, Jack. You're right. Titans don't pick again until the hundreds. I don't know that T'Vondre Sweat is going to be around at that point in the fourth round, but I just think that there are areas that you can add in the defensive line next to Jeffrey Simmons, and he's going to have to prove some things. He's going to have to prove that he can be consistent, because what was that quote from Terrell Williams, Sam, that he will be as good as he wants to be, right? As good as he wants to be. So that consistency is going to be big for him. He's going to have to stay conditioned at that weight. 366 is quite a weight to check in with going into the draft for T'Vondre Sweat. If it hits, then obviously extra hot. What that could do for the defensive line and for Jeffrey Simmons is massive. But with those needs that they had at inside linebacker, and with the type of high level player that I think Junior Colson is, I'm going to go with just right there between medium and hot. I don't hate the pick. I do not hate the pick, but I think they could have addressed D-line at some point down the road. And I know T'Vondre Sweat was not everybody's favorite defensive lineman in this draft.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask both of you guys this. Would you have felt more comfortable addressing inside linebacker in the fourth round or defensive tackle? I know that you desperately need a guy in the middle of that defense wearing the green dot. But if you're okay with Gibbons, if you're okay with Reese, do you feel okay with going interior D-line here in the second round as opposed to inside linebacker and pushing that need into day three?
Inside linebacker day three has kind of always felt like where I wanted to go. It feels like more of the value there. Inside linebacker to me is a position that you can get throughout all 7 rounds of the draft. If you know what you're looking for in a particular defensive scheme, I think there will be plenty of guys available at 106 that the Titans can plug into their defense and feel really strong about. And also, we don't know how Denard Wilson values the speed of somebody like Otis Reese, a former safety from Ole Miss who, can really trigger and fly all over the field. He's got some work to do on it, kind of the idea of playing the position of linebacker. But the physical tools are certainly there, and maybe the Titans are banking on that in 2024. I don't have a problem with them putting it off, though. No.
Yeah, I think Sweat will have some stuff to prove from a mentality standpoint, consistency in his mentality as a defensive lineman in the NFL. And Jeffrey Simmons is only going to help him with that, right? Jeffrey Simmons is a guy that understands this is not, a young quarterback coming into play behind the starting quarterback where that veteran starting quarterback, could not care less about the development of this young guy. He only cares about his career. Jeffrey Simmons' success is directly impacted by what T'Vondre Sweat can do next to him. So I do think that is a big reason to be confident about this pick, that he's going to come in and Jeff is going to hold him to a high standard, because maybe I'm missing somebody, guys, but the Titans haven't necessarily spent high draft capital on the defensive line next to Jeff, right? I mean, the majority of the guys they put in next to him.
Not that I can really remember at all.
It's been quality free agent signings, right? The likes of who's Mario Williams, right? A DeMarcus Walker, guys that have come in off the street and played good football for the Titans. But in terms of a day 1 or 2 pick to put in there next to Jeff, a young guy to come in as a rookie and play next to Jeff, that you spend that kind of draft capital on, that hasn't happened since Big Jeff was drafted in 2019. So that'll be cool to watch Jeff and T'Vondre Sweat, the way they work with one another and how much Jeffrey Simmons kind of takes him under his wing throughout training camp.
And that's the big key to me about this whole pick, is that Jeffrey Simmons will be there lockstep with T'Vondre Sweat in his development, and he's going to push him. You remember Tierre Tart got cut by the Titans, not a good locker room personality. I actually ran into Jim Schwartz at Dick's in West Nashville, and he told me it's a stay away situation there. So the Titans moved on from Tierre Tart, and I think they got a better version of him in T'Vondre Sweat. So if Titans fans enjoyed Tierre Tart, you're going to get that player and then some without any of the locker room issues. So this is a big win for the Titans.
Well, hey, do I need to remind everybody about what was being said about Jeffrey Simmons this time when he was drafted by the Titans as well? If there's anybody that knows about this guy's got a character issue and all these outside people talking about what's in here and what's in here, it's Jeffrey Simmons. And this is a guy that got on the phone with Miss Amy, breaking down, crying, and said, "I won't let you down." I think he's the perfect mentor for T'Vondre Sweat. I think he's the perfect person to kind of have next to him to lean on as a rookie in the league. And I don't know if either of you guys have been in the locker room to watch this Titans team interact at times, but the defensive line is so weird and so wild. The biggest personalities, T'Vondre Sweat is going to fit like a glove in that room. Like Arden Key is going to, I'm just thinking about Arden Key, Big Jeff, and T'Vondre Sweat all being in the same room and just bickering at each other on the defensive line nonstop, while quiet Harold Landry sits in his locker and tries to not be bothered by anybody. It's going to be a really fun dynamic. So, I don't know. I'm buzzing. I'll say mine. I'm extra hot. I'm off the Scoville charts. I really didn't think this was going to be a thing. I was preparing to wax poetic on here about, well, the Titans missed an opportunity to get a good one. And I expected to watch the Philadelphia Eagles or somebody draft T'Vondre Sweat and just be like, yep, they know how to pick them. What can I say? But no, he's coming to Nashville. I get to talk to T'Vondre Sweat again. That's awesome. I'm pumped. I'm all the way up here. Very hot, Princess Hot Chicken. I don't like spicy very much. So if I was at Princess Hot Chicken, I would go mild. But right now, give me all the spice, all the heat.
Guys, did the Eagles get Cooper? I think the Eagles got DeJean,
the Eagles have taken Cooper DeJean. We've kind of missed a few picks here while I've been,
Yeah, Saints got Kool-Aid.
Feels like a match. Saints get Kool-Aid McKinstry, Eagles get Cooper DeJean, and the Texans are announcing their pick right now. So we're about to find out from Christian Harris, who is going at 42 overall and joining the AFC South.
Guys, do you think without that DWI that Sweat's available at 38?
No. I heard at the combine that he wasn't getting out of the first round. So do with that what you will.
Sure. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, what a weird, coincidence that was that the Titans held a meeting with him the day after he gets arrested. So Rand Carthon got to sit down and be like, man, what happened? And Tavondre Sweat doesn't have a lot of PR training heading into that meeting. So it's all raw and it's all organic. And Tavondre Sweat, whatever he said in that room, clearly convinced Rand Carthon and the Titans brass to take a shot on him in the second round. I mean, his agent didn't have time to prep him for that question. He's right out of jail, right in the Titans building. I mean, seriously, I think that's a big part of this. And you find out a lot about a guy in that situation. So whatever Tavondre Sweat said in that meeting apparently worked out.
Yeah, and by the way, the Texans getting cornerback help. Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia is the pick for Houston there at 42.
Yeah, I think, Jack, and Rand Carthon did talk about this as well. He talked about, hey, I got an NIL check when I was in college. And how did I handle my $880 every 2 months? Horribly. And I do think, I'm not making an excuse for what Tavondre Sweat did or the choices that he made. They were poor choices, but they were poor choices made by somebody who was young, and they were just that, a poor choice. I don't necessarily think a poor choice is always reflective of poor character. And I think that's really what the Titans were here trying to get to the bottom of, is like, how does one choice reflect your character, or does it not at all? Rand said he looked in the mirror and said, well, shoot, looking at how I handled some of the money when I was that age, I wasn't always great at all. And so, you have to sometimes give a little grace to 20, 21, 22-year-olds that are, in the spotlight all the time, and bad judgment. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. I trust that the Titans have done the legwork here, and that if they're confident, I'm confident.
Jeffrey Simmons has tweeted his reaction. He said, and I quote, "Oh man, let's go. Finally got another bull in the interior. Let's work, big dog," and tagged Tavondre Sweat. So Big Jeff is fired up that the Titans are spending draft capital within the first 2 days to slot somebody in right next to him.
Hey, you can make a case that the Titans just made the two most important players on their roster very happy in Will Levis day one and Jeffrey Simmons day two.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, both picks are completely in support of arguably the two most important players on this roster.
I'm going to try and get this video that I have in my camera roll from the Senior Bowl sent over to my my laptop here so that I can play it for all of you, because I think it's something that Titans fans are going to want to see. It might actually knock Jack and make Jack invisible here. While I do that, well, I think it's a vertical video, so we might just have to cut you off.
Sorry, I'll take a break
for a moment. While I do that, chat, now that we've kind of calmed down, I don't know if I'm all the way calm yet. I don't know. So maybe I'm speaking for everybody but myself. One word to describe this pick for the Titans. One word. Jeffrey Simmons loves it. I love it. Lucas is open to it. Jack's on board, I think. How's the chat feeling? Give me one word to describe this Titans pick. And as these come in, Jack, I will have you keep an eye on the chat and see what the people are thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah, here we go. Let's go ahead and get it rolling. We've got Brad Davis starting us off on Facebook. He says A+. We're not grading it. We're going for words. So one word, people. Billy Jones understands
this morning
the game.
Too.
Billy Jones gets it. He's saying beefy. Massive like from Oliver. Jeff Rubel, Colts fan, is clowning the pick. Trenches from Julius. Porterhouse. I love that word. DJ Bliss. Let's go. Run stuff from Willie. We've got I was wrong from Bork. Okay. Steal. Anchor. That's another word that can be described. That can describe both the Titans picks in day one and day two. We've got thick with a whole lot of C's from Trevor. Blessed. DWI from Nathaniel. Clearly a concern for him. Amazing from Amar. Dog from Danny. Trenches. Reached. Methodical. Beast. Phenomenal. We've got Bully from Pistol Ramsey. I like that. Strong. Destruction. Once again, we see a beef. Derek Williams says 1980s. The Titans are getting nasty like they did back in the 1980s, like the NFL used to be built inside out. That's where the Titans are focusing their draft efforts this year. We've got dogs, perfect, solid, heavy. You're not wrong there, SA. Awesome, colossal, another good word. 700 pounds, deflated, monster, beefed. Let's go. And then last one, Titan. He's a Titan. Oh, and we've got Mean from Zach Geringer because there's so many answers coming in that the chat lags, and that's what
Yeah, no, people are flooding the comments. Jack, give me one word for this pick here.
One word for this pick. That's a tough one. I think trenches is my one word here. The Titans are doubling down on a philosophy that we began to see, last night with J.C. Latham. You really solve the trenches issues, and there's been a lot of turnover in the last couple of years in those areas, and you kind of get your answers for the next 3, 4, 5 years, maybe even longer if you're lucky, and you start to feel really good. The defensive side of the football is beginning to, outside of the inside linebacker position, it's beginning to feel like it's going to be a top 15 defense next year. I mean, when you think of the talent they brought in through free agency, you had a game changer like Tavondre Sweat on the inside who just eats runners alive in the middle of that defensive line. And maybe, he's capable of getting a couple of coverage sacks along the way just by bull rushing the center in front of him. So you know what? I'm going trenches. I think that's a great strategy for the Titans as they begin. They've already added some of the skill guys on the outside on offense. You've got your secondary loaded up right now. Now you fix the trenches, and that's exactly what the Titans have done so far.
I don't know if this counts. Maybe it's technically 2 words. It's really one name because I'm going to say Donkey Kong. I'm going back to that comparison that we saw from an NFL scout with Dane Brugler because that is truly what Tavondre Sweat can be at his absolute best. Guys, we always talked about it when Aaron Brewer was the center of the Tennessee Titans, that when he was going to go up against a guy with the size profile of a Dexter Lawrence, right? A Tavondre Sweat, or at least what Tavondre Sweat projects as, he could get bullied. Well, the Titans now have 2 guys that can be those bullies, that can be those Donkey Kongs pounding the snot out of Mario on the defensive line. So I'm going to go with that.
And how are you going to double Harold Landry? How are you going to double Harold Landry when you got to worry about those 2 guys in the middle?
No, you're not.
Harold Landry's also got to
only double one of those 2 guys in the middle, which is fantastic because Big Jeff's going to be on a lot of single blocks moving
Marcus says DK and Bowser in the trenches. So which one's DK? Which one's Bowser between Sweat and Simmons?
Ooh, I think Simmons is probably DK.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Simmons is probably built more like an athlete, and I think I think Sweat is just like a big ball of strength. And he's huge.
Bowser. Then Bowser is my one word. Yeah,
I'll take Bowser. Here's my one word: dog. Because dog was the one word that I said when I watched this, like 5 feet from it happening in Mobile, Alabama, back at the end of January, and I said, whoever gets him is getting a dog.
Sit down.
That's a first team all SEC, Bo Limmer, the center right there for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Again, we'll do it one more time. Tell me how somebody's gonna. You asked who's gonna like double team whoever. Whatever. You have to double team him because you can't block him one-on-one because this happens.
Sit down.
The place stopped. That was Mike Tomlin there right in front of me, and everybody just kind of went like, "Ooh, did we all just see that?" Like, this guy is a dog.
He folded that man like a lawn chair.
That Arkansas helmet, the Arkansas helmet was bouncing around like a bobblehead going backwards.
Yeah, no.
You hear one of the coaches in the background say, "Sit down, sit down." The Arkansas player listened.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, not exactly how you coach that, but certainly, sat down. A quick update on the picks that have happened thus far while we've been, pumped about or at least I've been pumped about the Tavondre Sweat pick. Jackson Powers Johnson has gone to the Las Vegas Raiders. And then at 45, the Green Bay Packers are selecting Edgerrin Cooper. So there's your first inside linebacker at 45 to Green Bay. So I guess the answer to the question was yes. Had you traded back 10 spots, your inside backers are still sitting there right now. I'm not mad at the fact that they didn't trade down because maybe the Titans felt like Tavondre Sweat wasn't going to still be there.
Yeah, it does. So Junior Colson's still on the board.
Colson is still on the board. And let's see if I can pull this up real quick in real time and just get a look at NFL.com's best players available. We'll go to the undrafted. So currently on NFL.com by ranking, you've got Jonathan Brooks, the running back out of Texas. Still have not had a running back go in this draft. Michigan linebacker Junior Colson, Jatavion Sanders, a Texas tight end. Then you've got 3 wide receivers, Malachi Corley, Troy Franklin, Adonai Mitchell, still sitting there on the board. I am shocked that an A.D. Mitchell and even a Troy Franklin are still sitting there as we approach the middle of the first round now. And the Indianapolis Colts are on the clock with a chance to potentially get one of them. Are they in the market for a wide receiver in Indy?
I don't see why they
signed
wouldn't be.
Michael Pittman this offseason. Alec Pierce
Got
still
Alec
on
Pierce,
that roster.
Got Josh Downs from last year's draft.
Yeah.
So you're probably squeezing one of those guys out.
Really just running it back, right? The Colts, I mean, are the run it back team of the NFL offseason.
Yeah, our Colts guy, resident Colts guy, Big Ten Jeff, says they kinda are. So who knows? Maybe they like one of these guys here at 46.
No Shaq Leonard anymore. That era is over in Indianapolis. And maybe they try to bring in a linebacker.
Cause of death, Derrick Henry. But the A.D. Mitchell thing is really mystifying because it came out that he's got type 1 diabetes and maybe his mood's off when his blood sugar's not right. I wonder if that's scaring teams away. I don't think it's a legitimate concern. It shouldn't be a legitimate concern in my eyes. There's been players that have played with diabetes that have had long careers in the NFL. My guy Jay Cutler being one of those guys.
Well, I don't think the concern is about him just having diabetes, but more how he handles it and taking care of himself, right? Because it's such a part of this being a pro is taking care of your body and being in the best possible shape mentally and physically. And if there are concerns there about being able to take care of yourself for a condition that you have, then that's going to bleed over to the football field and coming back from injuries.
Fair point. Now, I want to ask you guys
Colts
a
have
question.
traded out of their pick. So the Colts traded back with the Carolina Panthers. They came up and they've taken the first running back. It is Jonathan Brooks from Texas off the board to Carolina. That checks out. I mean, Chuba Hubbard was their guy last year. The Miles Sanders signing did not work at all. A position that they would obviously like to add to and get somebody, figured out for the next couple of years. And Jonathan Brooks, a good option for the Carolina Panthers. So they add to that offense with Bryce Young.
By the way, go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say, so the Colts just traded back. Now, if the Titans want to get back into the third round, because I've seen this come up in the chat a few times, if the Titans want to get back into the third round, what exactly might that package look like?
Well, before you answer that, Sam, real quick, Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan are meeting with the media right now to talk about T'Vondre Sweat. Rand Carthon said they got about 8 or 9 offers for the number 38 pick, and they opted to stick and pick T'Vondre Sweat anyway. So it sounds like the opportunity, he didn't say if those offers included a third rounder, but it sounds like the opportunity very well could have been there. And for what it's worth, they also said they flew to Sweat's hometown, Huntsville, Texas, to spend time with him and his family to vet the situation completely after the DWI, and that D-line coach Tracy Rocker and DC Denard Wilson all very much in favor of this pick.
My answer to anybody in the chat saying we should have traded down, my answer to you, and I might regret this like tomorrow or 2 days from now. So excuse my I'm on.
Hey, we got the weekend. They'll forget about it.
I'm riding the T'Vondre Sweat train forever, and I'm so happy. So my answer to you is, I'm gonna tell you right now, we don't care. We don't care that you had 8 or 9 offers. You got T'Vondre Sweat. That's all I care about. That's all I'm in about. And yeah, that it's good stuff. Titans did their homework. Clearly, they talked to Clutch Sports, went to his hometown. You said vet the situation. I think is a very accurate description there. And this is 2 picks now. A lot of buzz. Should they have traded back? And 2 picks now that the Titans have come to the podium and had a ton of conviction about the guy that they're bringing into their building. I think that's a good thing. I think if you're a Titans fan, you can, and maybe these are 2 picks that you hate. You can at least take some comfort in knowing that this was not like a scramble. I don't know what to do. Let's take the best player available type of thing. This was a calculated plan, as we heard from Rand Carthon, a clear idea of the fact that T'Vondre Sweat was going to be there for them at 38 teams. Hey, can we come get a wide receiver? Can we come get T'Vondre Sweat? Can we so-and-so? Not worth it for the Titans. You go get your guy.
Well, but back to Jack's question initially, Sam, do you see any scenario where the Titans could manage a 3rd round pick here?
Yeah, I don't. I'm sorry. Like, I would love to, but what
would that package look like hypothetically if they did it?
I mean, it involves either a player or a future pick. Maybe it's a future 2 and 106 to get into the third. Like, I don't even know.
Gross.
I don't know what the precedent is for something like that. That
Okay.
would be tough to get into the third round without a third round pick and without a ton of fourth round picks.
You don't have to agree with either of the picks the Titans have made, but you can't tell me that this front office did not have a plan and they did not execute that plan to a T in this draft so far. They did what they wanted. They got bigger, they got stronger, they got more physical in the trenches.
Well, listen, we played the thing earlier about getting off the bus, but how about this quote from Brian Callahan last week in the pre-draft press conference about how the defensive line was still in the building phase and they were kind of hoping to add to it still.
Yeah, it's a position that's still in its building phase. You know, we got guys that we feel good about, but you know, just like any front, offensive or defensive front, you're never going to turn down good players that can bolster that. It always is going to start and end there. If you can play physical in the trenches, you're going to have a chance to be a pretty good football team. And so those are always areas we're going to look to add players, even when we might have what we think is a good front, which we do. There's always going to be opportunities to keep adding to it because all I know is when you play against a team that seems to kind of come at you in waves and every player they put out there can play, that's a lot of stress on an offense from my perspective. So, the more guys you have that can rush from inside and outside, the stouter you play against the run, that's an area that you're always looking to keep adding good players to.
So there you go. And, you know, the Titans are now issuing quotes about how nobody loves the second round pick more than Jeffrey Simmons is what Rand Carthon is up there speaking to the media about right now. So looking to bolster, looking to get more guys that can rush the passer inside out. Devondre Sweat, some people saw him and said, hey, this is a run stopper. Teron Davenport and I went over and talked with him on the side during the Senior Bowl, and Teron asked him, hey, how do you feel about the people that say you can't really rush the passer and it's really just you're a run stopper kind of guy? He just says, I told him to watch, like, watch me come get your quarterback. You know, if you're a team that doesn't think I can rush the passer, you'll be thinking that while your quarterback's on the ground, and watch the tape and see that I can do that. So again, really confident guy. Titans have a lot of confidence in him. And I kind of forgot about this, but Jack, to, I guess, put a bow on your question here. The Titans are not coming back in the third round because typically we would not get this press conference right now if there was a chance that a team was coming back.
Yep.
If there was any shot, and last year is a great example of this. The Titans took Will Levis last year at the front of the second round, but they were trying to get back into the first round to do so and get that fifth-year option on him. They didn't end up getting it done. But we didn't hear from Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel about Peter Skoronski until like the end of round one, because they were sitting there fighting on the phones, trying to see where they could get in to get a quarterback. So the fact that they're speaking right now means this is it for the Titans today. They'll be back at 106 tomorrow looking to fill some more needs.
Devondre Sweat in 2023, his final year with the Texas Longhorns. He was a 5-year guy in college, obviously due to the COVID year. He played in 14 games, 45 tackles, 8 TFLs, all a career high, 2 sacks, 4 passes defended, a unanimous All-American, the Outland Trophy winner, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, first team All-Big 12, and a 2-yard touchdown catch with the Texas Longhorns last season, as well as his first career blocked PAT.
He also ran a 5.27 at 366 pounds. He ran a 5.27. Now, I tried out at quarterback for the Nashville Cats Arena Football League, put myself through the combine, and I ran just barely better than Devondre Sweat in the 40. And
be a photo finish, then, you're saying, if it was you and Devondre lining it up.
And I'll just say Devondre Sweat has over 150 pounds on me. So, you know.
I'd like to see y'all run that back. By the way, Nashville Cats season opener tomorrow.
Yes. That's my guy. So maybe I'll go up to Devondre and at training camp. I also watched him at the Senior Bowl, by the way. He was running routes and caught an over-the-shoulder touchdown catch and then hit the Heisman pose. So he likes to have fun during practices. Maybe I'll see if the Titans will let me challenge him to a 40. Who knows?
I've seen a lot of Vince Wilfork comparisons in the chat, and I want to point out that Devondre Sweat has 2 inches on Vince Wilfork.
He reminds me of Vita Vea.
You mentioned the 4 passes defense. He'll get his hands up and swat some balls down. And for the pocket passers, that the Titans are going to face this year. The pressure they're going to have coming from the interior is going to make them get uncomfortable and roll out and make bad throws. Where Chidobe Awuzie, where Roger McCreary, where L'Jarius Sneed, can make turnovers or force turnovers, I should say. So, I really love how this defense is shaping up. I love the plan of attack here this offseason. It's really been a win now attack since Brian Callahan was hired. And I think this pick, when you go get an impact starter on day 2 of the draft, only follows that up.
Yeah, I mean, he what did I just read here? He 5.24, all of the intangibles, and the NFL comp Vita Vea for him on NFL.com, which
you take that.
You will absolutely take Vita Vea. So, all right. Well, do either of you guys have anything else that you want to say here? If we're assuming the Titans are done, we may be able to call it a night.
Well, should we look down the road here and what we want? What we want for
I think
tomorrow?
That's a great idea.
The Titans have a 4, a 5, a 6, and 3 7s. No, 2 7s. That's because they dealt one.
Traded one of them.
That's right.
So 106, 146, 182, 242, 252. You got 5 picks to play with tomorrow. Those 106 and 146 are the 2 that I think a lot of people are going to be the most intrigued by and seeing what needs they prioritize. Are we all in agreement? Like, are we rooting for the inside backer there at either the 4th or 5th round? It feels like a natural sort of, that's where they should go. I'll also float the idea out there, and maybe I'm going to jinx it here, but in the 2nd round so far, we have not seen an offensive tackle go yet in the 2nd round. There has not been a single one
still
come
on
off
the board.
So, I think a guy like Patrick Paul, my other draft crush next to Devondre Sweat, I think he'll end up going either by the end of the 2nd round or sometime in the 3rd, and you'll get a good group of that. But, does a tackle like a Blake Fisher, who we looked at as the right tackle from Notre Dame, does he make it to day 3? Is there a guy that the Titans think, a Javon Foster, who they believe could play maybe on the right side of the offensive line, and go get another tackle? It solves your issue of needing to bring in Andrus Peat. I don't hate that idea at 106.
By the way, the Jags have picked Mason Smith, the defensive tackle out of LSU, so that run on interior defensive lineman continues. At what point do you start talking about wide receiver? Malachi Corley still on the board. We'll see how long he stays up there. Jermaine Burton is a guy that you think could be available in that range. I mean, how long are the Titans going to push this before taking a playmaker with Brian Callahan and all the talk about the Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell thing? Like, what is the max amount of picks that the Titans could take before taking a wide receiver? Like, just how far could they push this thing before going offense? And the skill position, that is.
I don't know if they do. I don't know if wide receiver is necessarily a must draft. I
agree with Sam.
Why? But why do you feel that way? Because I alluded to this yesterday that we're away. We are now off of the elite wide receiver talent. 49 picks have gone, and we're not seeing wide receivers go. Or the wide receivers that people like are already off the board. Now, would I love Jalen McMillan to be sitting there at 106? Yes, he's my favorite, most underrated wide receiver in the draft. I think he would fit perfectly in this offense. So in case I'm just riding hot right now, go ahead and mark that on your notes, chat, and wait for Jalen McMillan to be a Titan tomorrow. But the further we get from elite talent, the less of a need wide receiver becomes. It becomes a luxury. You have Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins. You still have Treylon Burks. You still have Nick Westbrook-Ikine. Brian Callahan, whether you believe him or not, has said that he's intrigued by Kyle Phillips and what Kyle Phillips can do in the slot. The offense is changing, and as the offense changes, the role of somebody like a Phillips or a Burks or an NWI could be changing with it. So I don't necessarily think, if I'm the Titans sitting here with right tackle wide open, with safety wide open, with inside linebacker wide open, you could still use a little bit of depth in the secondary, probably. I don't know how much wide receiver is at the top of my need board unless there's a guy that I really love.
For me, there is still an element of speed and explosiveness just to take the top off a defense that I think I would still like to add to this offense. I understand that Calvin Ridley can be that deep threat. DeAndre Hopkins can as well, but in his own way, right? Not as a burner, not as a take the top off kind of guy. But so I think I would be surprised. I think I'd be very surprised if the Titans do not take a wide receiver at some point in this draft. And I'm trying to kind of figure out what wide receiver that could be available in that range that kind of flashes as that speed option that had that 40 time at his pro day or his combine or whatever it might be. Not that the 40 time is end all be all, but a Javon Baker out of UCF
I've got an
like
interesting guy for you. Let me throw Jacob Cowing's name out there for you. Out of Arizona, he ran a 4.38, and it is kind of a slightly worse version of Malachi Corley. Like, it is used in a lot of different like gadget ways, but the speed is really the thing to watch here. Really fun tape. Was draft projected by NFL to land in the 4th round. The write-up on him, he's slightly built. He's a slightly built slot receiver who's more quick than he is fast, and he lacks big-time separation, but he's made for option routes underneath and displays a nose for the end zone. He limits drops, improved as a route runner, and displays some punt return talent as well to give him the best chance of sticking on an NFL roster. Jacob Cowing in the 4th, that's a name. That's a name I would watch in the chat. Is Danny specifically loves the idea of a Luke McCaffrey. So he will probably be there in the 4th round as well.
Yeah.
Or Jalen Coker from Holy Cross, kind of an underrated talent.
The only other receiver that the Titans have met with that is remaining on the board is, Tez Walker out of UNC.
Yeah. Well, Roman Wilson.
Is Wilson still available? Okay. Wilson's still available. I don't expect him to get to the 4th round.
No.
I think Tez Walker, there's a chance that he maybe makes it to the early part of the 4th round. And Lucas, you said you wanted speed. I mean, we're talking about a 4.36 40. So there's your speed right there. Now, would they prioritize that over inside linebacker? We'll see. Are they going to, answer the safety question in free agency with a guy like Justin Simmons? Oh my gosh, I would love that if they did, but I'm not so sure. So Tez Walker is a guy to keep an eye on if they're going wide receiver in round 4. Malik Washington is another big draft crush a lot of people have out of Virginia. So that could maybe be a guy they look at. But I'm fine to push that back.
Mike Sainer still just went to the Commanders at 50. Love the player. I think that's a good pick for them, but that's beside the point. So you're now 55 picks away from the Titans' next selection. Realistically, how many wide receivers are going in 55 picks here?
I'm very surprised Roman Wilson is still on the board. Brendan Rice is another guy you expect to be gone by then. I'm glad you brought up Tez Walker, Jack. That feels like a very fringe type of thing. Will he be available there or not? But you want to talk about a low-risk pick that could be a vertical playmaker. Remember, Tez Walker, there was a bunch of stuff around him with the NCAA, and he wasn't eligible and the transfer stuff. And Mac Brown wrote a very strongly worded letter to the NCAA, and they eventually made him eligible. So Tez Walker played in 8 games last season and racked up 700 yards receiving, averaging 17 yards per catch, and led the team in touchdowns with 7. And I know he had Drake May throwing to him, but originally signed with TSU. He's not new to Nashville. So, and like you mentioned, the Titans have visited with him. So I like that with Tez Walker, but I think you'd be right there on the margins on if he'd be there in the 4th.
Well, he's interesting because he's somebody who I think everybody was really, really high on after the season for all of those reasons that you just listed, Lucas. Like, it felt like he was underrated. I don't feel like Tez Walker had a very good pre-draft process. He was one of the names that the word around the Senior Bowl was not a good week for this guy. I thought he struggled to catch the ball. I thought his play strength was lacking. I don't believe he blew anybody away at the combine either. So I think this is somebody whose draft stock has started to fall in the pre-draft process. But an interesting note on that, and this is something that I've heard from multiple people within the Titans building, the Titans don't put a ton of stock into the pre-draft process. As far as combine workouts, Senior Bowl is concerned, like Senior Bowl performances and practices, they have the tape. They have the fall grade, and the fall evaluation grade is usually what they use to make their selections. That is the organization's current philosophy. So maybe Tez Walker didn't shine in the spring, but if he shined in the fall, the Titans could still be really high on him. And real quick, because I just looked now, we're at pick 51. 10 wide receivers are off the board. So if we're assuming another 10 come off the board before the Titans 55 picks from now, here's 10 names for you that are still on the board. Malachi Corley, Troy Franklin, Adonai Mitchell, Roman Wilson, Malik Washington. You've got Javon Baker. You've got Tez Walker. You've got a Brendan Rice. You've got Jalen McMillan. We're already
Burton.
at 9. Sorry?
Jermaine Burton,
Yeah,
Alabama.
Jermaine Burton is there as well. And so now you're starting, I don't remember who I said and who I didn't, but you're starting to get into that tier. Tez Walker, Jacob Cowing, Jermaine Burton, Anthony Gold, Javon Baker. One of those guys potentially there for the Titans. Not something that I think is impossible. Luke McCaffrey, didn't even list him.
Anais Smith, a really talented guy at A&M. He's had some off-field stuff, but you mentioned, nobody caring about Pro Day or the Combine. You know who had a great Combine? Adonai Mitchell, and he's still on the board. And then maybe there's some stuff we talked about with the diabetes, but it does feel less and less relevant, doesn't it? The testing and the Combine and all the numbers that come out of that with every passing year.
I mean, how are you going to throw away a multi-year body of work for one weekend in BFE, Alabama? I mean, seriously.
No,
those people. That's the overthinkers. Those are the teams that overthink the draft. Like maybe the Atlanta Falcons did. Okay, off one weekend, they were so impressed. You got to trust the tape, and more importantly than that, you got to trust your interviews when you bring these guys in. That's two things I think the Titans have done with J.C. Latham and T'Vondre Sweat. So, go off the tape, go off the body of work. Forget what happened in Mobile.
Something that I think teams do value of this whole process is, one, those meetings that you said, and then two, just sizing a player up. I heard from one Titans executive that they just enjoy being out there to look at somebody on a football field in pads and get a feel for how the tape translates into real life. And sometimes guys are much bigger than you think. Sometimes they're not quite as big as you think. T'Vondre Sweat, sorry to keep talking about him, but he was the pick tonight, was a guy who just was so much bigger than you can even imagine standing next to him in person, where you're like, wow, he is 2 people wide, 2 people combined in width. I think that was something that, the Titans looked at and probably liked when they saw him through the pre-draft process and got to know him in person. So go ahead.
I was going to say, finish your thought, but I was going to ask if you could throw up the Titans picks one last time.
Yep. Titans picks, here they are. These are the picks that they'll have tomorrow. So these 5 selections were through the first 2.
So wide receiver, inside linebacker, maybe a late edge rusher, maybe some value at offensive line at the tackle spot. That's 4 positions that I've just listed there with 5 picks there on the board. Are there any other positions you could see the Titans addressing, maybe safety at some point in those last 5 picks?
I could see them going secondary and grabbing somebody who they think has special teams value. And just, I know that's, not what people necessarily want to hear, but it is kind of the reality of the 6th and 7th round of the draft. Is you might look at somebody and be like, ooh, he can tackle on special teams. And hey, kickoffs could be important this year. They could look for a punt returner. And I don't know, is it crazy to think that they could look at a punter, or are they sold the Ty Zentner if Ryan Stonehouse doesn't make it all the way back by?
I'd be upset if they used a draft pick on a punter.
Yeah, I think Stonehouse is expected to be back week 1.
Yeah, we kind of are on the fence about that right now with his, 2 ligaments torn in his knee and a broken bone in his leg. Feels like a toss-up depending on whether or not. And this is actually a good point by Marcus here. You could draft a kicker. You got Nick Folk back, but he is old. You could always, if you find a kicker one year and you want to give him a shot in camp, you could always do that as well. So not necessarily opposed to any of that in the 7th round if you feel like you filled out all the other positions. That's kind of what you have 7th round picks for.
And the Titans have found some gems late in the draft. David Long, Mark Mariani come to mind. NWI was a UDFA, and they've had some luck there as well. But just because these picks aren't attractive, it doesn't mean
I got bad news. I got bad news. Adonai Mitchell's an Indianapolis Colt.
Good value there for the Colts.
Really good value.
I hate to tip my hat
so
to
we
those
heard
guys.
maybe they were in the market for a wide receiver. They were, but they ended up getting their guy after a trade back. Really nice job by Chris Ballard and the Colts there. Adonai Mitchell at 52. Whoa. hello. If that, some red flags, obviously, that we've gone over that you're potentially worried about with the diabetes and the attitude that surrounds it. But that Colts fan, you got to be feeling pretty good about that right now.
Really risky draft for them, too, after Latu yesterday.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a good point.
Yeah, both their picks.
As we sort of come near the finish line here, if there's one prediction that I am sure of before the end of this thing, and it's not a hot take, Titans are going to finish this draft with a wide receiver. The class is just too deep. It's too deep. It's too good. And we're talking about Brian Callahan, and an offensive-minded coach for the Tennessee Titans for the first time since the Mike Mularkey era. The Titans will have a wide receiver's name called before they finish picking in this draft.
Mm-hmm. They need to. They're really only 4 deep at that spot right now. And they could really use to add a guy to jump Colton Dowell, jump Mason Kinsey, and kind of supplement NWI, Traylon Burks, whoever fills that 4th spot.
Let me turn it over to Brian Callahan real quick to your point, and then I'm going to make my case for my favorite wide receiver to be drafted by the Titans. I'm going to tell you why I love him. But Brian Callahan was asked about the depth at both offensive tackle and wide receiver, and he says that wide receivers in the later rounds, you can still find some guys that get the job done.
Just from my point of view, it's a bunch of good players. There's it's probably more offensive linemen than there's been in past classes. This feels deep in terms of the talent that's available. And the same thing with the receivers. I think the receiver classes are pretty similar these days, where you're going to have a handful of high-end talent that's probably going to go in the higher parts of the rounds, and there's going to be some depth in the class that's got a lot of different options for what you're looking for in a receiver. So that part's been it's been consistent, I think, with previous years, but you're always going to find depth in the receiver classes. I think overall, there's always going to be good players available, and then this, I think, is a pretty strong offensive line class. I think we'll see where it all shakes out, but evaluation wise, there's some really good players there.
Yeah, I see the same. We were looking at the.
So there is Brian Callahan talking about wide receivers. You hear there's some guys who can do some things, who can fill some needs for you if you need to, and allow me, because if we're looking at the wide receivers that could be there, I think we need to talk about Jalen McMillan just a little bit more out of Washington as somebody who would fit this offense really well. Jalen McMillan, for those of you who do not know, played alongside Jalen Polk and Rome Odunze for the Huskies in 2023 and in 2022. And in 2022, he led the team in just about everything. Led them in catches with 79, led them in touchdowns with 9, had 1,100 receiving yards, which was just behind Rome Odunze's mark. He was kind of considered to be a slam dunk 1st or 2nd round pick coming into this college football season. Through 3 weeks of 2023, McMillan had 20 catches, 311 yards, 4 total touchdowns, was on pace for an even bigger year, suffered a knee injury against Michigan State that would keep him out of the next 8 games. And he would try and come back and play a few snaps, and it wasn't there, and he would head back out again. And he missed a lot of time. That knee injury he suffered September 16th. The next time he recorded a stat, November 25th. Over 2 months went by before he recorded a stat again. 1 week after returning, 9 catches for 131 yards and a touchdown again in the Pac-12 title game against Oregon. Because of the injury, he ended up moving to the slot. He scored in the national semifinal game. He scored in the national title game. He had some big games down the stretch. Versatile guy, good amount of explosive speed, can fill right into the slot there and kind of take the top off a defense like you want, Lucas. I don't know if he gets to 106, but if he does, I really love Jalen McMillan's upside. I think it's rare that this late in the draft, you can take a receiver with the pedigree of like a former projected 1st round pick who probably just had like an injury issue.
Sure. Yeah. Sub 4.5 40, long strides type of guy. Obviously the question mark there is durability, but no, you could do a whole lot worse than McMillan at that spot. That's my point, right? There are going to be names on the board at receiver, whether it's Baker or McMillan or Walker. There are going to be value adds there that are going to be hard to pass up to bring that speed and explosiveness at minimum to training camp.
Absolutely.
All right, one thing y'all are looking for in day 3 of the draft. One box you want the Titans to check more than the others. Y'all have an answer?
That's mine. I'm not going to move off of that. Speed,
Okay.
explosiveness, taking the top off, something the Titans have been talking about adding to this roster, it feels like, for years, and have done nothing to actually do it. Calvin Ridley is a piece of that, absolutely, but he's 29 years old. Titans are going to address the wide receiver position, and that's the skill set that I'm looking for with it.
I'll kind of go opposite of Lucas. I'll talk about the other position that I think is really deep, and they already did one, but why not add another offensive tackle here? I think there's a second spot here that we still need a starter at, and maybe it comes internally, but it can't hurt to add some competition. And if Bill Callahan feels so good about their ability to evaluate offensive tackle depth, there are players out there who can plug and play and start in rounds 4, 5, and 6. I'd like to see them take another swing at tackle with one of their first couple picks tomorrow.
Okay. I'll read, actually, I'll get to the chat here and read these answers before I get to mine. I've got a guy in mind I'm looking for. Kenneth Davidson, Pistol Ramsey. They both say linebacker. My computer's fading on me here. Maybe I shouldn't. We've got Elks with a wide receiver. Willie says wide receiver. Wide receiver from Poi Paul. Continuing to go. A lot of wide receiver answers in the chat. Pat Paul, don't think he'll be there in day 3. ILB from Billy Jones. That's exactly where I'm going. I really like Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. I think he's got that sideline to sideline speed, ran a 4.51 in the 40 at the combine. He's capable of wearing the green dot in the middle of the defense. And to me, that's the biggest hole you have left on your roster is who's going to start at that inside linebacker position. I think Trevin Willis gives Otis Reese and Jack Gibbons a run for their money in camp. So that's who I'm looking for with that 4th round pick.
Big need.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's all we got for you guys today. Leave a like on the show before we head out. Not enough likes. Facebook is slacking again. Facebook
get to 100.
Yeah, Facebook needs to get it up because YouTube's been well over 100 for a while now. And Facebook, you've got like love options, like options, shocked options, angry. You got every option on Facebook, and you guys still can't do the numbers of YouTube. Let's go. Have a little Facebook pride. Leave a like on the show before we head out of here. We will not be live tomorrow. Tomorrow I will be at St. Thomas Sports Park. I will be, trying to battle in the trenches to get some questions into the Titans day 3 draft picks over Zoom. Lucas, what you got going tomorrow? You off? What are you doing for the draft?
Nashville Soccer Club broadcasting the game against San Jose at Geodis Park. 7 p.m. is the pregame on 104.5 The Zone. 7:30 kickoff. Get that plug in.
They need one. They need that one bad.
They need it. Need 3 points, no doubt. Worst team in the league. The town.
They need that one. You guys need to like the show. You need to go turn on the Preds game or something. Have yourself a day. Want to give some love to our sponsors on the way out once more. They are Holiday World Family Fun, just a couple hours away in Nashville with free parking, free soft drinks, and free sunscreen at Holiday World and Splash and Safari and Princess Hot Chicken, Nashville's original hot chicken bursting with heat and flavor. Go to Princess Hot Chicken in their 3 locations in the Nashville area. This has been the Titans Round 2 Draft Show with A to Z Sports. Thanks, guys. See you later.